You know what happens when a team, even a team with skill and training, doesn't have a plan. Things don't work out the way you want them to. That kind of approach is very dangerous in our business. At Diamond Offshore, our safety program has many components. DuPont Stop Program, safety alerts, pre-tire and pre-job meetings, hazard hunts, and more. But we found that the most effective safety tool is a job safety analysis, or JSA. A JSA is important because it defines a way for you and your crewmates and third-party personnel to plan each step of the job you're getting ready to do. The JSA identifies hazards and makes you think about how you can manage these hazards so that no one gets hurt. The result is a safe and a more efficient operation with good communication among the crew. The JSA is useful for new and routine jobs. What many people don't understand is that our most serious accidents occur during routine work. The JSA, when properly reviewed with active crew participation, is an excellent way to remind everyone what you're supposed to do and what hazards to be aware of right before you do the job. And just because a JSA has been written once doesn't mean it can't be updated. By improving a JSA over time, we can make every job safer. It's about teamwork. You make a plan, and then you follow that plan. That's the kind of discipline we all have to exercise to achieve an accident-free workplace, which is our ultimate goal.
One of the most important tasks that every Diamond Offshore employee and third-party personnel must finish actually begins before many jobs start on the rig. It's the task of completing a job safety analysis, or JSA. The objective of a JSA is to plan jobs, minimize risk to employees and the environment, and maximize efficiency. A JSA is really an outline for a pre-job meeting. Every job, including any one-person job, requires planning. This applies to unusual tasks as well as routine assignments. This planning must include 1. What is to be done? 2. Who is going to do the job? 3. Who is in charge of doing the job? 4. How is the job to be done? 5. What tools and equipment are required for the job? 6. What will be affected by the performance of this job and who needs to be told? 7. What are the potential hazards of doing this job? 8. How will the hazards be eliminated? And 9. Should this job have a JSA? Diamond Offshore requires that a JSA be applied to all jobs that may lead to harm to people or the environment. Most of these types of jobs are identified in GEMS and include BOP handling and testing, running casing, tubing or liners, drill string operations, mooring, well testing, heavy lifts, and other situations using unusual or unfamiliar equipment or procedures. Additionally, no completely new task can be performed without a JSA first being considered. Each job safety analysis is a living document, which means that it is to be improved and updated over time. A master JSA must be maintained on the rig and reviewed before any crew or crew member performs the job described in the JSA. There should only be one JSA for a particular task on a rig. All crews involved in completing the task should agree on the job safety analysis. As conditions or the job criteria change, the JSA must be updated to compensate for the changes and ensure that all hazards are identified. Also, if conditions change while the task is being performed, the job must be stopped so the effects of the change can be analyzed. The JSA should be revised to reflect the change. The JSA is a job planning reference and training tool for all crew members and third-party personnel. It must be used in pre-job safety meetings just before the work is to be done to promote safety and hazard awareness. A JSA can be completed inside or out on deck or another location where the job will actually take place. Specific steps must be followed to properly complete a job safety analysis. First, the job supervisor and other appropriate crew must prepare the master job safety analysis. To begin the master JSA, the crew must define the task to be carried out in detail by describing each step in the sequence of events that will take place during the job in the order that they will occur. The first sequence in developing a master JSA is to determine if a work permit is required. Next, the more specific sequence of events must be detailed. All crew members involved in the job should participate in this planning.
Okay, subsea is done with the riser pup, and we're going to put it back in the rack here. What's the first step? Marcus, you want to start?
Hook the sling to the crane.
Okay, what else?
You got to shackle the slings to the riser, and the crane operator's going to lift the riser and move it across the deck.
Then we'll set it down and take the shackles off.
Next, each step in the sequence of events must be analyzed to identify any potential incidents or hazards. For each potential incident or hazard, you must establish methods that will either eliminate the hazard or manage the risk. The risk of not completing a JSA is that rig personnel will not understand what the job tasks are or be alert to the hazards. The way to eliminate this risk is to inform everyone what's about to happen and to ask questions to be sure everyone understands.
Okay, let's do the potential incidents or hazards for each step. Marcus, what could happen with the slings?
Well, they could break.
Okay, how do we eliminate that risk?
Well, we have to inspect the slings and the block, change out any parts that are no good, and then check a load rating for the sling to make sure it can hold the weight.
Okay, what could happen when you shackle the slings to the riser?
You could get your finger pinched.
Right, so how do we avoid that hazard?
Make sure your hands are placed right and stretch out the tag line.
What happens when the riser is lifted?
Well, it might hit you.
So what's the best way to avoid that?
Make sure everybody's communication is good, that the load is not lifted until the jet coordinator gives a signal and everyone's clear of the load.
And use tag lines.
Okay, what about when you place the load and undo the shackles?
You can get caught between the riser and the stanchions or something else. You can prevent that by not getting caught between the load or anything else.
Just make sure you know where you are on the rig and know what everything that's around it.
Okay, right. Now everybody don't forget, if the weather changes or you see anything that doesn't look safe, let's shut it down and talk about it. Derek, you're deck coordinator. You're flagging. No other special requirements. I see everybody has the proper PPE, the hard hat, safety glasses, steel-toed boots, and work gloves. Let's get to it.
What about all the trips and falls? The deck's wet, so let's watch our footing, including walking over pipe rack beams or any other trip hazards.
That's a good point. Here's a copy of the JSA. Let's keep up with any changes as we complete the job, and we'll update the JSA. Okay? Everybody clear on it? Let's go.
If a hazard cannot be eliminated, procedures must be established to control that hazard. Make sure risks are adequately and safely controlled. During the step-by-step analysis of the procedure and its potential hazards, remember to include mistakes that could happen to create new hazards. Define these potential hazards and determine ways to compensate for them. If, in the final analysis, a hazard cannot be eliminated or at least controlled, the procedure must be changed. All procedures must have the expectation of a safe and efficient result, or they should not be attempted. Other crews on the rig should have an opportunity to review the master JSA and add to it if necessary when it is their turn to do the job. Finally, the OIM must approve any master JSA and subsequent revisions and maintain only the latest revision on the rig for future reference. If the OIM is unavailable, the night pusher can give temporary approval until the OIM can review the JSA. All safety alerts related to a job should be included in that job's JSA to capture lessons learned from other rigs. When new safety alerts are issued, it is the OIM's responsibility to see that the information is included in all relevant JSAs. Take safety alert number 186, where a snatch block fell to the rig floor, as an example. For this one, every JSA involving rigging through a snatch block would be modified to ensure that the snatch block is removed or properly secured at the end of the task. As a supervisor or employee prepares to do any job on the rig, two decisions must be made. 1. Will a JSA help me do this job safely? And 2. What type of JSA should be done? A guide for decision-making while using the JSA has been developed to assist anyone preparing to work. By answering 3 questions, anyone will be able to determine whether a JSA could help them accomplish the work safely. If not, a JSA is not required. If it is determined that a JSA would be helpful, then the supervisor must first determine if a master JSA exists for the job. If not, a master JSA must be created and approved. If a master JSA already exists, then the guide for decision-making will help the supervisor decide what type of JSA review must be conducted. Again, by answering 3 additional questions on the decision guide, you can determine whether a routine JSA review is required or a detailed JSA review complete with a walkthrough is needed. Now let's take a few common jobs as examples and walk through the decision guide. The electrician decides it's time to change a burnt-out bulb in the living quarters. Starting at the top left box that says, "For every job, start here," the electrician asks, "Could I hurt someone else doing this job?" He answers, "No." Next he asks, "Could someone else hurt me while I am doing this job?" Again he answers, "No." Finally he asks, "Have I done this job safely before, and do I know all of the steps by heart?" This is an experienced electrician, and he answers, "Yes." Following the arrow down, he arrives at Decision 1, which is to proceed with the job at the supervisor's discretion. No JSA review is required. Next, we will look at driving a 120-inch diameter caisson from a jackup. On this particular rig, this job has never been done before. The driller starts at the top left corner of the guide, as before, and asks, "Could I hurt someone else doing this job?" The answer is obviously yes, so he follows the arrow to "Does a master JSA exist for this job?" He answers no, and is directed to Decision 2, complete a master JSA before doing the job. For the third example, the driller is preparing to pull out of the hole. It is the 5th day of his hitch. His crew is well experienced, and he pulled out of the hole yesterday. Again, the driller starts at the top left corner and asks, "Could I hurt someone else doing this job?" He answers yes, and already knows that there is a master JSA for pulling out of the hole because he used it the day before. Moving across the page, he is directed to do a JSA review. Proceeding down the page, he now has to decide what type of JSA review to do. He asks, "Does this job involve more than my team?" He answers no, and asks, "Has my team done this job safely within the past 3 days?" He answers yes, and now asks, "Has something changed that may affect the safe outcome of this job, such as new employees, weather, vessel motion, or any other factor?" In this case, he answers no, which leads to Decision 3 that says, "Utilizing the master JSA, do a routine JSA review as a minimum." A routine JSA review includes a pre-job meeting with all personnel involved, use of the master JSA, an interactive discussion with his team, and may be led by other team members. It is anticipated that this routine JSA review will take no more than 5 to 10 minutes. For the fourth example, this same driller the next day again must pull out of the hole. Unfortunately, his lead floorman had to go in before crew change day. A roustabout was assigned to work in his place temporarily until another floorman could be sent from town. Again, starting at the top left corner, the driller answers yes to "Could I hurt someone else doing this job?" and "Does a master JSA exist for this job?" This time, when he gets to the question of "Has something changed that may affect the safe outcome of the job?" he answers yes, and arrives at Decision 4. This time, since he has a roustabout filling in, he must conduct a detailed JSA review, which includes a walkthrough. The roustabout is shown the job, can place his hands on the tools, and gets an opportunity to ask questions and look at the possible hazards while the JSA is being discussed. Depending on the number of steps in the JSA, it could take significantly longer than 10 minutes. The JSA review with walkthrough includes pre-job meeting with all personnel involved, use of the master JSA, on-site hands-on equipment, on-site walkthrough of steps in procedure, interactive discussion with all employees, and is usually led by the supervisor in charge. These are just 4 examples of how to use the decision guide, and if used consistently, the supervisor can be confident he is making the right decision regarding JSAs. At any time the supervisor feels that a walkthrough is required, do one. Remember, the goal here is to utilize the JSA as a tool to get the job done safely. Once a master job safety analysis is prepared and approved, any task covered by that JSA must be reviewed by any crew about to take on that job. The supervisor is responsible for obtaining a copy of the master JSAs pertinent to the particular job at hand and using this copy for the JSA review. Then the job supervisor, or someone he assigns, should actively lead the team meeting with all members of the crew, including third-party crew members as necessary, participating.
Okay, today we're going to pick up a bottom hole assembly. To get started, let's review the JSA. Okay, somebody tell me what happens first.
Got to put the drill collars in the V-door.
Okay, Rick, what are the potential risks in doing that?
Pinch point. You get caught between the handrails and the drill collars. And you got to use taglines.
Tim, how do we eliminate those risks?
Stay away from the handrails, use the tagline, never get under the load, and make sure there's good flagging communication with the crane operator.
Be aware of your surroundings.
The job supervisor must achieve full participation by the crew. If a single crew member makes a mistake because he didn't understand the JSA, the safety of everyone on the rig could be jeopardized.
Then we make up and torque the drill collars with the tongs and the rotary. We got to watch out for the rotary moving and make sure the tongs don't slip.
The snub line could hit you too.
So what do you do to eliminate those hazards?
Watch where your feet are when you're near the rotary table. Be careful where you put your hands on the tongs and steer clear of the snub line.
Okay. Remember that safety alert on lift subs backing out while in the elevators, okay? Keep our eyes open. Tim, I want you to keep an eye on this, each connection.
As the crew reviews the job safety analysis, the job to be done must be fully described. This must include discussion of each team member's role. Crew members must participate by explaining their understanding of the job. This will help confirm that the task is clear to everyone on the team. Each member of the team is required to discuss his part of the job, including all of his responsibilities as the work progresses. Each individual step of the job is to be discussed by the team in this way, and the steps should be checked against the master JSA.
Let's do it.
If there are discrepancies, they should be analyzed and added to the JSA if appropriate. It is best to review the JSA at the work site. If a new JSA has been prepared away from the work site, it is recommended that the crew conduct a walkthrough of the job and JSA once on site. The walkthrough is the best method of practicing steps required for any job. It is also the best training for new crew members, and it is an excellent refresher for experienced hands. Remember, most of our serious accidents occur during routine jobs. Finally, a walkthrough is a good way to detect flaws in the JSA so that adjustments can be made if necessary. When the JSA review is completed, this should be documented on the pre-tower meeting form. If a JSA is conducted during the tower, the supervisor should simply note that it was held and who attended in his tally book. Supervisors are encouraged to keep copies of master JSAs that are frequently used near the work area for quick reference. Use of the JSA does not end once the job begins. It should be used as a reference throughout the job, and it must be critiqued once the job has been completed. During the JSA critique, the following questions should be answered. First, did the actual task match the job description in the job safety analysis? Next, were the results as expected? What happened during the job that was not covered by the JSA? What improvements could be made to the JSA that would make it more accurate and more effective? When the team has answered these questions fully, and if changes are needed, the master JSA should be amended accordingly. All during the JSA process, from preparing the master JSA through the critique of the JSA when the job is finished, all teams involved with the task should have access to the JSA and should be allowed to contribute facts, ideas, details, and information that would improve the JSA. Useful input is always encouraged to enhance safety and efficiency. Total participation by the team is vital for the successful completion of a job safety analysis, as well as the safe and successful execution of the job it covers. Diamond Offshore takes the job safety analysis process seriously, as should all Diamond Offshore and third-party employees. Every member of the team has a responsibility related to the JSA. The OIM must review, approve, and maintain all master JSAs, hold all personnel accountable to adhere to the plan detailed by the JSA, and monitor team needs for successfully completing the task. The team supervisor must be sure the team is ready for the work. He must find the appropriate master JSA for the upcoming job, and then lead the team in its review of the JSA. When the work begins, the supervisor must coordinate all action, make changes to the JSA as necessary, and get OIM approval for any changes. Finally, team members, including third parties, must actively participate in job safety analysis development and discussions. Participation leads to better understanding of the work to be done, as well as any actions that may be required to ensure the safety of everyone involved. When discussions are completed and the work begins, each team member must perform his duties as described in the JSA. If conditions change that will affect the job, team members must alert the team supervisor. If a team member notices a previously unidentified hazard, that team member must see to it that work is immediately halted so the hazard can be assessed. If a team member is uncertain about his role or responsibility, he must stop the work and review the JSA again as needed. No matter where you are or what your position is on a Diamond Offshore rig, safety and protection of the environment is everyone's responsibility. Employees are encouraged to contribute their knowledge and experience to the process, participate actively in JSA reviews, and understand the job they're going to do by understanding the job safety analysis. This kind of participation is vital to make every JSA as informative as possible and to make all jobs as safe and efficient as possible. When your crew has a plan and then follows that plan, your chances of accomplishing the job safely and efficiently improve dramatically. Diamond Offshore's job safety analysis is for every employee's benefit. Participate, know your job, and work safe.
At the end of the first Diamond Offshore JSA video, a question and answer session was included, clarifying issues that we thought would arise in implementing the JSA process. Now that the process is being actively used throughout our fleet, several questions and issues have come up regarding JSA implementation. We will address these as frequently asked questions. Remember, the JSA is a safety planning tool for you and your crew. It should not create a lot of extra paperwork. No hand copying of the JSA is required or desired, just for the sake of documenting that the JSA was held. Enthusiastic participation by everyone involved in the job is required to make this tool effective.
Do we have to make a JSA out for every job?
No. The jobs that must have JSAs are listed in the Safe Work Practices Manual, Section 2.11.2. We state in GEMS that any safety critical job should have a JSA. This, of course, is still very subjective. However, if the supervisor will use the guide for decision making introduced earlier in the video, many of the uncertainties can be cleared up quickly.
What happens if a supervisor decides that a JSA was not needed for a job that isn't on the required list and an incident happens?
Every significant incident should be investigated for lessons learned. It may be that one of the lessons learned is that we should have conducted a JSA. In that event, the list of required JSAs in the GEM system will be modified so that everyone will know. Supervisors will not be criticized for their decision under these circumstances.
Now that we have to put the number of JSAs we do on the morning report and report the number of JSAs we do on the monthly safety report, does this make it a numbers game?
No. The important thing is not the numbers of JSAs created or performed. The important thing is the number of injuries or environmental incidents prevented. Numbers can be an important indicator, and statistics can tell us a lot. We know as a fact by looking at numbers that as the number of stopped cars goes up, the number of accidents goes down. We are interested in learning about the effectiveness of JSAs in similar ways.
Does a JSA have to be copied onto the minutes of a pre-trial safety meeting?
No. Just make a note in the minutes of the meeting what JSA was reviewed. Also, unless the job is scheduled to begin immediately upon going on tower, you should plan on waiting until the job is ready to start, then review the JSA at the work area. In this case, the supervisor just needs to note in his tally book that the JSA was reviewed and who was present.
When an incident happens, why are we always asked if a JSA was done?
Diamond Offshore believes that JSA is the best proactive tool for preventing incidents on board our rigs. The above question is asked as part of the normal incident investigation process that is designed to identify lessons learned and get these around to the rest of our fleet.
Are signatures required for JSAs?
Yes and no. Yes, the OIM signature is required when the JSA is first prepared and becomes the master JSA. No, they are not required when reviewing existing JSAs. A note in the supervisor's pipe tally book with date and JSA number is all that's required for documentation purposes. We trust your note as much as everyone's signature.
When do we do a risk assessment instead of a JSA?
A JSA is in itself a risk assessment as it identifies hazards associated with the job we're getting ready to do and provides means to eliminate or control those hazards. This is used for jobs that have been proven acceptable to do on our rigs, like tripping pipe, running casing or BOPs, offloading boats, etc. The use of a formal risk assessment, as defined in GEMS, is a tool used to analyze a situation to determine if it can be managed safely. This tool will largely be used for unforeseen or unusual situations that we may occasionally face. Some examples where this has been used includes addressing issues such as, should we continue operating a semi in a very high current? Should we pull BOPs due to a control system leak? Should we stay connected and operating after failure of one mooring line? The operator wants us to kill haul a tree that we cannot handle with the rig's crane. Can we do this safely? The process to do a risk assessment is to assemble a group of knowledgeable people, including the company representatives, and ask many what-if questions to identify what must be done to lower any risk to an acceptable level. This also serves to document the rationale for continuing or refusing to do a job. Once you've completed a risk assessment and a decision is made to proceed, you will still need to do a JSA to detail the procedures to be used in the job, how to safely manage the associated hazards, and to define roles and responsibilities. The risk assessment is used to determine if the job can be done safely. The JSA defines how to do the job safely.
Do we have to rewrite the JSA every time we use it?
No, modifications are required to the master JSA only if you change it to make it better during the JSA or during the critique of the JSA.
Can a JSA be done while the job is being performed?
No, the JSA is a planning tool. If during the performance of a task it is realized that the work is not going as planned, stop and do a JSA.
Seems like we go overboard with JSAs for some jobs, like when we're tripping pipe all week. Wouldn't one JSA for the week be enough?
No. Keep in mind that our most serious incidents have occurred on routine and repetitive jobs. For these types of tasks, a routine review of the JSA every time is a great tool to prevent the crew from getting complacent about the hazards that are involved. Just make it the main part of your pre-job meeting. Again, refer to the guide for decision making to assist you.
But what about during cementing, when we might have a man in a riding belt 5 times in an hour? Do we need to review the JSA 5 times in that hour?
No. If the crew members don't change around and the man riding task is essentially the same every time, then one review of the JSA is sufficient. But let's say the man riding job switches to the Texas deck or moon pool area, then because something significant has changed, you need to perform a new JSA. For man riding, always follow the procedures in GEMS. The most important being that we never move a person in a riding belt without a JSA.
How should we use the master JSA?
Although there is no exact one way, the following is a good guide. The supervisor, for example the crane operator or driller, prints out or makes a copy of the master JSA for the job he is getting ready to do. He reviews the information using questions and answers with his crew. He does not just read it out to the crew. If new ideas are brought up, he makes additions to the master JSA. After everyone has had input into the job planning, the supervisor is to go over any item that the crew forgot. In other words, the JSA is used as a checklist. At this time, the foreman can log in his tally book that he and his crew went over the JSA. No signatures are required. If there were some additions or changes to the JSA, the supervisor sends these to the OIM for approval and to update the master JSA.
If a work permit is required, does the job automatically require a JSA?
No, although in many cases the nature of the potential hazards may make a JSA a good idea. Again, the jobs that must have a JSA are listed in the Safe Work Practices Manual.
Does a copy of every associated safety alert have to be attached to each JSA?
No. Each safety alert requires that all affected JSAs are reviewed and modified if necessary. The OIM is to log each safety alert into the master action list and note actions taken. It is only after all relevant JSAs have been reviewed that the audit item can be cleared and moved to the completed tab.
Now let me leave you with a few key points about JSAs. JSAs must become a way of life in how we do our business. You need to use the JSA as a tool to keep you and your crew from getting hurt. Crew involvement is the most fundamental part of the JSA. The supervisor or whoever is conducting the JSA must solicit and generate crew involvement. A good way to maintain involvement is to pick different crew members to lead the JSA discussion. Once you get used to using the JSA process, you'll see that it is common sense. We're simply planning our job, making sure every crew member knows his job, identifying hazards and how to manage those hazards. Use the JSA tool. It's the most effective way we know to prevent incidents that could cause harm to people or the environment.